So in this video, I'm going to show how you can go about creating this particular part that was posted out on the Fusion Facebook forum the other day. Now, Martin Marriott posted the solution to the problem, so shout out to Martin for posting that. But I wanted to share it on my channel because I thought it was a really cool solution and I wanted to make sure it went out to a whole bunch of people. So let's take a look. So in this video, I'm going to show how you can go about creating this twisted toroidal shape. So I'm going to start by creating a new design, and in this case I can do a part design. I'm in inches, and I'll start by creating the overall diameter of the ring. So start with a circle, and let's just do maybe like a 6-inch diameter, and I'll finish my sketch. Now what I need to do is to create a sketch that's going to get swept along this path. So I'll create another sketch and pick one of these, either this right plane or this front plane here. I'll go ahead and pick this front plane, and now we're looking straight on at this edge. Now I'm going to rotate so you can kind of see a little bit better. So here is where we're going to be sketching. Now I'm going to use the Polygon command to kind of help me out here. So I'm going to pick inscribed Polygon, and you'll notice as I try and pick here, it's not allowing me to pick on this circle. And that's because I need to project some information first. So I'm going to escape out of my Polygon command and use project intersect. And what this is going to allow me to do is it's going to project the intersection of this circle onto our sketch. And you'll notice this little red dot that appears where this circle slices through our sketch plane. So you can kind of see our sketch plane is right here. And as I pick on this circle, it's going to project that point. Now when I do the inscribed Polygon, you can see that it's actually going to catch to that point. And this is why the project command is very important. So I'll go ahead and click there. In this case, I want 8 sides, so I'm going to change that number to 8. And then let's go ahead and maybe just make this 1 inch. Oops, not 81. Let me tab to the other and say 1 inch in diameter, in radius, I'm sorry. There we can see it's 1 inch in radius. Now you also notice we have the sketch is blue, which means it's not fully constrained. So I want to do a little bit of work here to fully constrain this sketch. And I can grab this point here. You can kind of see I can rotate this around. And I want this point to be horizontally lined up with this point here. So I'm going to pick horizontal vertical, pick that point and that point. And you can see how it rotated down and all the lines have turned black. Now I'm going to use these as reference. So I'll just select all of these and pick construction from my sketch palette. And that will turn these to construction lines. Next, I'll go ahead and use the arc command, 3-point arc. And I'm just going to draw from one point to another point, and then I'm just going to place this arc for now. So I'm just going to go ahead and click. And again, you'll notice that it's blue, which means that it's not fully constrained. So I'll go ahead and throw a dimension on here. So I'll click that arc, place the dimension. We can see it says 0.57. Let's just make that an even 0.5. And we can see that sure enough, that line is turned black. If I expand open my sketches, I can see that both my sketches are fully constrained. Now, I've only drawn one arc, and I want to pattern these on these other lines. So I'll go ahead and say create circular pattern. What's the object? I'll just select my 3-point arc line. What's my center point? It'll be the center of this polygon. And by default, you can see it has 3, and I can just increase this until we get to 8, and now we can see all of these points are connected. I'll go ahead and say OK. And as I'm looking at this, I can see, these are pretty pointed. So I might change that from 0.5, let's go to 0.75. And you can see how that kind of smooths out the curve a little bit. I think that looks a little bit better. And I'll say Finish Sketch. And we now have the necessary information to do a sweep command. So I'll pick on Sweep. It's asking, we're going to do a simple path. You'll notice there's quite a few different options for the sweep command. You can do what's called simple path, and then we can also go with a path and a guide rail, path with a guide surface, and even do what's called a solid sweep. But in this example, I'm going to do what's called simple path. My profile is going to be this profile here. My path is going to be this circle here. And you can see it gives us an instant preview of what that would look like. It takes the profile and sweeps it around that line, that path. Now what's neat in here is you have some flexibility. So you can see we have, actually I'll start out with the distance. So you'll notice it says distance 1 and 0. So it actually allows you, so for example, if I said 0.5, it's going to go halfway around. If I said 0.75, it's going to go 3/4 of the way around. So you can kind of think of it almost like a ratio. It's going from 0 to 1 all the way around, like 100%. Then we also have this taper angle, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And then the twist angle, and this is kind of where the magic happens. So if I'm going to change this 0 to 360, and as it's sweeping along this path, it's also twisting the profile 360 degrees, and that's how we get this cool little twist in the 3D model. If I change this to something like 180, you'll notice it's a little bit more of a gentle twist. In fact, even if we just did, 90 degrees, you can see all of the different options that you have in here. If we did something a little bit larger, so let's just say, 1,000, you're going to see that you can put a lot of twist in there, and we get a little bit of an issue over here. So I might have to do some math to kind of figure out what mathematically makes the points line up correctly. So, for example, in multiples of 90, so 360, 180, 90, etc. So I'm going to set this back to 360 and say OK. And we now have our finished twisted model. Now these are sharp edges. I might come in here and put a small fillet on there, especially if I'm wanting to do like a realistic rendering. So I might say like something at 0.02. And I'll go ahead and just add that to all of my edges here. And that just reflects the light a little bit different. So if you're trying to do a realistic rendering, I recommend adding those fillets. And then if I wanted to, I could add an appearance. So I'll hit A for appearance. I'll go into wood, and let's just drag, for example, like mahogany onto there. And that gives you the result that showed in the image earlier. I'm going to go ahead and undo just to show the model a little bit easier. Now what's neat about this is you can make changes to this very easily by going into your parameters. And I'll go ahead and expand Open Sketch 1, and this is the overall diameter of the ring. And I'll go ahead and rename this D1. I'll just call this ring diameter, and I'll add that to my favorites. I'll go ahead and expand Open Sketch 2, and this 1 inch right here, this is the radius of the profile. So I'm going to just say profile radius, add that to my favorites. And then this is the radius dimension. So I'll just call this radius or arc radius and add that to my favorites. And now we could come in and make some changes to this. So for example, instead of 6 inches, let's make that 5. And you can see how that updated accordingly. If we change the profile radius from 1 to 1.5, we can see how that changed, and then maybe we change this radius from 0.75. Let's just make that 1.25. Let's maybe make that a little bit smoother. Let's try something like 2. And you can see how you can kind of mess around with what this overall shape looks like. Now this twist function is actually pretty powerful. You can do some pretty neat things with it. So I'm going to create another quick part design here and show how you could do something like twisted wires, for example. So I'm going to just start with a couple circles to define the wire. So let's just do maybe 0.125 for the diameter. And I'm just going to put it right here. Create a circular pattern. What's my center point? I'll do that. And my object is going to be the circle. And I'll just do 3 of them. And what's nice about this is I can then, move this circle to kind of get those wires closer together if I wanted to. Next, I'll create a sketch that defines the spline path that I want the wire to follow along. So I'm just going to kind of use the spline command like so. And I might want like the start of it to go straight up. So I'm going to pick this first green line and say I want that to be horizontal vertical. And now you can kind of see that the spline is going vertical to start out with, and maybe move this point over just a little bit like so. Okay, so now I have my 3 wires and then the path that they're going to follow. I'll say sweep. What's my profile? I'm going to select all 3 of these. What's my path? I'll select that as my path. And now it's asking for the distance. I'm just going to grab this arc right here, or this arrow, and start to drag, and you can see how it's sweeping along that path. And this is new as of the last release. You used to only be able to go to 1 or 100%, but you can now go past that, which is kind of nice. It allows you to extend past that. I'm going to just go to 1, and so you can kind of see what this looks like. And then we'll add in this twist angle. So let's just do, again, 360 degrees. And you can see how it's going to twist those wires around. Well, let's do something a little bit more substantial. Let's just do 1,000. And now you can see how it's twisting those wires. I'll say okay. I'll add some appearance in here just to make it a little bit easier to see what's going on here. Let me pick maybe like translucent. I'll make one of them blue, one of them green, and one of them red. And that way you can kind of see the different colors. So it's a neat way to make complex shapes very, very quickly. And what's neat about this is if I turn on my spline, I can make changes to my spline and the wire will update accordingly. So I can pull this point over here like so, and you can see how it's going to update that. Now you can't go too crazy because then it might fold in on itself. So just be aware of that. So that is using the sweep and twist function inside of Fusion. I hope you learned something new and enjoyed that video. If you did, make sure you've hit like and subscribe. That way you'll be notified of upcoming videos. If you'd like to learn more about Fusion, make sure you visit my webpage at cadedllc.com. And as always, have fun learning Fusion.